All right, let's settle down. Let's settle down. Let's settle down. My God, I'm excited about today's call. Man, I enjoyed the topic she had last March. She did all of March for us, and the topic that hit me the most was March 12th, and the topic she had then was organic edification. I thought was amazing. If you hadn't seen it, go back to Destiny International and watch it. It was March the 12th. That blessed me. All the rest of them great. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes something sticks out more than others. That stuck out to me, and I just want to share that with you guys today. She hails from Northern California. She is a provider for her father. She's also a community leader. She sits on a couple of boards up there. And I tell you what, her husband's got a couple different businesses going. And I tell you, we love her on the call because she just tells it like it is. Without further ado, can we give a warm welcome to Regional Vice President, Miss Keri Roeder.
Good morning, happy Monday morning, everybody. I love seeing beautiful, smiling faces. Thank you, Mr. L. Thomas, for the compliment, for the organic edification. It's true. When we create these relationships, when we have the structure of edification down, and then we can create a relationship, it comes naturally when you can pre-plan the structure, and then you can just speak honestly about somebody that you're creating edification for. It makes all the difference in the world. And there are times that I am edifying Mr. Thomas, and I get like nervous and all that, and I kind of stumble a little bit, and usually I'm incredibly articulate. But I feel like when that happens, I feel like people can then genuinely feel from my heart the value that he has with me. So yeah, organic edification is really impactful. So thank you for that compliment. And 1,200 views, that's funny. Well, that is my saying. So, oh my God. I have another one too. You want to hear it? So, Mr. Douglas Wolf, who is sometimes on this, he runs our events. He does the AV sound equipment stuff, whatever. Anyway, so before COVID, we would have like big events and stuff, and he would mic me up, and he'd put the little pin on me, and he'd hook the thing on me, and then we'd wait, and then they'd be edifying me, and then he'd turn on the little thing, and he'd go, "You're hot." I go, "Thank you." And he would start giggling, I would start giggling, and then I would go up in front of the room. Just, these are some of the behind the scene things that happen. But ultimately, we're building a business, but we're having a lot of fun too. Like Mr. Tony Koopa says, if you're not having fun doing this, then something's wrong. And you can tell Mr. Al Thomas always has fun in everything that he does. So anyway, those are my two little sayings. So I won't repeat the first one. You have to go watch it apparently and get 1,201 views. Okay, so I'm super excited. When Mr. Al Thomas asked me to come back in May, I had instantly knew what I wanted to train on this month, and especially to start. And then last month in April, we had our RC and above training call, and they talked about it. I texted Mr. L. Thomas. I was like, "Oh my God, that's my topic. I did not doing it as a result of the RC call." I've been super excited to share something with you that actually Mr. Al Thomas taught me years ago, and I have implemented it in a slightly different version. But ultimately, I want to talk about tracking our business. Okay. Now, again, many of you have your cameras on, so thank you. How many of you, by a show of hands, recognize that ACN is designed to be part-time around everything you have going on? Okay, good, because that's what we say in our presentations, right? We're doing this part-time. You get to keep your full-time careers or businesses, obviously your family, all of that. And so that's really being able to track your time is kind of how you can keep, when you're organized, you can be more efficient. Now, I am type A, I'm OCD, I have incredible organizational skills. It's just something that I don't know. I have a office supply fetish. It's really weird. I'm always buying office supplies to get myself organized. I'm so weird, telling you. But I have a lot of hats, right? You heard Mr. Thomas. So right now my kiddo's in college. So that hat is still exists though. She's 19, right? I still have to do things for her. I take care of my dad, right? So there's that hat. Obviously, I built ACN. I run my home. So there's that hat. I'm crazy. I started a little youth volleyball club 2 years ago. That's taking up way too much time, but there's that hat. And then also, my husband decided to come up with a nonprofit to fundraiser to give scholarships to kiddos in the Western and agricultural lifestyle in college because those kiddos are not acknowledged. Thank you, Deborah. Thought that was pretty cool. But somehow I went from driving the cart at the golf course to now I'm secretary, help do the website. Like I'm doing all these things. So I have that hat. So I have a lot of hats. So I have to stay organized. So I'm going to show you my ACN organization that helps me kind of identify what I'm doing in ACN and also what I'm not doing. And what I mean by that is what I have. So Saturday was my 14th year anniversary, and Mr. L. Thomas sent me a little happy anniversary, which was sweet. But here's what I've come to realize in 14 years. And remember how I always say this, when I'm talking to you, I can see me and I'm also talking to me. Okay. So in 14 years, we've had moments of mass momentum, moments of not so much mass momentum, right? Moments of momentum and then da, da, da. That's just how ACN goes, you guys. If you're brand new, welcome to it. Like this is your reality, is you're going to have moments of like, oh my God, I can't stop this train. And then moments where you're needing to figure it out again. So when I talk about the organization of ACN, what I have found in 14 years and talking to other leaders is sometimes people think they're doing ACN when in reality they're not doing income generating activities. So what I want to talk about is tracking your income generating activities. Right now, you're technically doing ACN because you're on a call, right? Leadership, you're learning. But in reality, this exact activity isn't generating income for you. So there's very few things we do in ACN, right? We get customers, we get other people who get customers. The other thing we do is we attend events. So this is attending events. So what I want to talk to you about is years ago, Mr. Al Thomas came to a leadership event and his was bigger, but he showed up with a normal size monthly calendar. Okay. And he talked about on his monthly calendar. Oh, I tried to go somewhere today where you could see my stuff. But on his monthly calendar, this is a weekly, but on his monthly calendar, he had written out all of the stuff he has to get done, right? In ACN, he wrote out all of his 101 presentations. He wrote out all of his PBR presentations because this was before Zoom. He wrote out all of the events, right? So what I started thinking about a few months ago was because again, I like to be organized, right? So I started thinking about, okay, Mr. Thomas said, have a calendar, have a calendar. Well, I think most of us use our phone, right? Phone calendars. I have to, right? Because it's constantly alerting me what to do. Well, with all of my hats, this is the system that I came up with for tracking what I'm doing in ACN. Because when you track what you're doing in ACN, when you're doing income generating activities, it will help open up your eyes as to what you're not doing. So some of you on this leadership call right now are like, well, Mrs. Roeder, I have no momentum. Okay, absolutely. No worries, because actually next week I'm going to talk about one of my newest IBOs is only put me in front of like 15 people. And we are finding a little bit of success, but she asked me, what does it take? Well, as I was going through some of my ACN stuff, I actually found my original folder with my very first original list of who I called. So next week, I'm going to share all that with you. But this week, I want to talk about tracking. If you're not having momentum, well, maybe when you start tracking, right, then you can start to get the traction that we need in order to generate the momentum that we need. So now this is a different world, right? Because we all use computers and stuff. But what I've done is this. I found these, I'm just gonna see them. I found these weekly, this a pad thing where you can have a weekly calendar. You can kind of fill in your weekly calendar, okay? And so what I've done, there's something to be said about being able to cross off your to-do list, okay? So on my main weekly calendar has my entire life, okay? I have this is last week, I have this week ready to go. Gives me all my to-do list, okay? So again, when we're organized, it can help us reduce our stress and it can help us be more productive. It can help us see what we are and what we are not doing. So that's kind of step one for me. Everything goes on my main paper calendar in addition to my phone calendar, right? My Google calendar or whatever. Okay. Then what I do is when I have a presentation or when I have a Zoom or whatever, like a one-on-one, then what I'm doing, I'm kind of going backwards. So I went and bought a weekly calendar because that's all I when I went to buy it. So what I'm doing now is after events, then I put them in a calendar. So now what I can do is I can look back and say, okay, Monday the 15th, I did a core training and there were 4 guests on there, okay, a training online. And then Tuesday the 16th, I had 2 presentations, one, both Zoom, so, and 2 different IBOs. And I wrote in there how many guests were on there, okay? So what I'm doing is instead of having, I don't like sloppy, which is why those get thrown away. Instead of, but if that works for you, do that, okay? Instead of having a calendar that's crossed off and written in and all that, my brain can't function in that capacity. So I have a calendar that shows me what I did. And if there is a blank day, so shame on me, right here, there was a blank day on April 19th. What? Like, if you do something every day, apparently Fridays are like my blank day because there's a blank day on the 12th as well. But every other day has stuff in there. Okay. But what I'm doing is I'm tracking what it is I'm doing, including my own personal efforts in recruiting and my own personal efforts in acquiring customers. So when I acquire a customer, it goes in, personal customer, it goes in on that day. Okay. The other thing I'm doing is I went and bought, so when I'm doing like Zoom presentations, I didn't bring it in here, sorry. When I'm doing Zoom presentations and whatnot, I kind of scratch out the details. Okay, who showed up, who didn't. When we go to in-person PBRs, right, I pre-write out who the list is, and then I mark who showed up, who didn't, and then what their decisions are and all that. And then what I did was I bought this little notebook, and I started writing in here who each day, right? So this one was one of my newest business partners. This goes back to Sunday, February 4th at 4 p.m. She had 4 people on her 4 p.m. Zoom and 3 people on her 6 p.m. Zoom. And I have their names, I have their decisions and what they're doing, right? So somebody became a Zoom customer. Somebody was no and negative. Another person became a Zoom customer. Another 2, the people at the 6 o'clock, all 3 were interested. So each day when something happens, right, I write down what it is so that again, I can go back to referring to what I was doing each day married with my calendar, but these are the details. So when you have traction, when you have momentum and you're meeting a whole bunch of people, here's the goal. Here's what I tell people when people call me. It's like, do you remember talking to so and so, blah, blah, blah? No, I don't. I'm so sorry. You know how many names of people I have met? That's your goal. That is your goal, to not have a clue who you have met and when. But here's the challenge. You need to be able to know who you met and when. So that's why I came up with this system. So when somebody calls me and says, hey, do you remember meeting so-and-so? No, I don't. Actually, was it your PBR? Was it your PBZ? What day? Now I can go back to my notes and I can go, oh, okay, I remember. Yeah, that was Stephanie from Taekwondo. She was on the Zoom, but she didn't have her camera on. She clicked off before the end. So I know that because I wrote that down that night. Okay. So when you can be organized in this capacity, that will help you track. So a goal is to not remember the names of everybody you present it to, because if you do, you're not presenting to enough people. Okay. Another thing I started, because again, most of you work, right? Most of you have your own business. So I created this system because it can travel with me. Okay. These things are not big and heavy for me to travel. Okay. So I carry them with me everywhere I go. So another thing I started is I have my little folder here. And for each, okay, so we're gonna talk about this next week. But every new personal recruit that I have, I went to Staples and I bought these little clear file folders, okay? And they're clear so that I can see what's in them, okay? They're not colored and all that, so I can see what's in them. So every new personal recruit I get, I have a little file folder for them, okay? And then what I do is every time I launch somebody, so here's a launch sheet we use, right? It's actually the same one that Mr. Presley used, trained on in, where were we, Dallas? I actually also write out for each person. I make my own copy and I write it out. And then everybody's, all the new IBOs in that team all go in this folder so that I can keep track of the conversations I'm having, but I have it per leg, right? Because I have my own new legs going. So every new leg or whatever has its own file folder, so that I'm telling you, I'm weird, I'm organized, and I have an office supply fetish. But this is just kind of how I can keep track. So when a new IBO calls, I can go directly to the information and not have to rely on my 51-year-old brain. Okay. I can go back to my notes because I have them in an organized fashion, if that makes sense. The last thing is for today, we'll talk about this more next week, is you want to make a list of no's. You want to make a list of no's. You want to make a list of no's that is so long. Okay. You want your no's to be long, because the more no's you get, the more yeses will come your way. Okay. So, two parts to the no's. Number one is we have to go through the many to find the few. Okay. And by the way, when the few sign up, we got to go through them to find the fewer. Okay. But we have to go through the many to find the few. So when your list of no's is so long, you're going to find that you have a bunch of yeses happening. Okay. The other half of the no list, that's where our customers come from, you guys. If you pay attention to any level of training at all, we say that, right? When we get to the, do you see that slide where it says, do you see an opportunity for yourself? Red apples are a yes, green apples have questions, brown apples are a no. And it says, no, thank them, ask them to become your customer. So your list, your humongous list of no's from your IBOs, from your team, that's where you teach your IBOs to turn around and acquire them as customers as quickly as possible. Okay. So now, and Miss Renata can tell you, and Mr. Thomas can tell you, we are always recruiting. You hear it. Mr. Thomas is always kicking butt. Every time I get on these calls, he's like, I recruited so-and-so, I recruited so-and-so, right? So we are always in phase one. So what I've done to organize my brain is I have my file folder for my list of no's. I created a little spreadsheet. I hid the back so you guys don't see who. But on here, on my little spreadsheet, it says the guest, who the IBO was, the date, what their answer was, a column for follow-up, and then answer. And see, on the backside, I already have some written, but for everybody else's privacy, I did showing you this. But I'm able to go back to looking at really quickly what answers were. Again, another way for me to track my IBOs and what it is they're doing. And so on here, I'm going to add another sheet, and it's just going to say no's. And then I'm just going to write, I'm going to number it, right? And then I'm just going to write all of their names, because when we can get to a large enough number of no's, again, we're getting our yeses, we're building a customer base. Years ago, Mr. Greg Provenzano said, present ACN, do 1,000 ACN presentations, and you will be an RVP. How quickly or slowly you do those 1,000 presentations is completely up to you, but you do 1,000 presentations and you will hit regional vice president. So hopefully this helps today. Again, I'm oddly an organized person. It's just how my brain thinks. You create your own system, but ultimately, if you're not tracking, because this is a business, every business owner tracks their business. Okay. So if you're not tracking your business, I strongly suggest you start. If you can't figure out a system, call your upline. If they don't have a system, you're more than welcome to call me. Most of you have my number, right? And I'll help you kind of get organized in a way that in a manner that fits you. But because I'm mobile all the time and phone calls come in, that's where I created this, because I have my cute little bag, right, that I carry around, and I can very quickly, efficiently pull out my ACN information and be able to build my business while I'm out and about, remote, and all of that. Because again, we are all doing this. Most of you have jobs. We're all doing this part-time, spare time, in order to obviously have the lifestyle that Mr. Thomas and Miss Renata Krumer have. So that's it for today. I'm super excited for this month, because I'm excited just to share more about what it takes and all that. And again, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me, because I can see me too. So I'm going to turn this back to our mentor, who has helped every single one of us find success. And even if you're not finding success in ACN in the capacity of the financial benefit yet, here's what I know. You follow his lead, you will. But here's what else I know. When you take his information and you apply it into other areas of your life outside of ACN, you will find success there. He doesn't just teach us how to be successful in ACN, he teaches us how to be successful in life. So I'm going to turn this back to you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you again for inviting me to be on for the month of May. I'm super, super excited.